An extraordinary confrontation just erupted in the Oval Office that CNN executives are desperately trying to memory hole. When a reporter tried to ambush President Trump with a loaded question about deportations, what happened next left the entire press corps stunned. Why did multiple cabinet members take turns dismantling CNN's narrative? What shocking statement was Dana Bash forced to make on air afterwards that no legitimate news network should ever have to say? And which longtime CNN figure is remembered for his horrific acts in the Oval Office? Well, the establishment media is imploding before our eyes, and tonight we're revealing the explosive exchange that proves their propaganda machine is finally breaking down. Now, if you're battling pain while watching CNN's painful coverage, listen up. Before reaching for another painkiller, discover the turmeric hack that's shocking the medical establishment. This Trump-era breakthrough features a turmeric extract 200 times more powerful than standard versions, perfect for patriots tired of mainstream pain solutions. Just as Trump exposed CNN's propaganda machine, this formula exposes Big Pharma's grip on pain management. It attacks inflammation at the source, just like Trump attacks fake news at its source. No more expensive treatments or ineffective medications. Watch the eye-opening video at goldenrevive.com/NNN and start your journey towards pain-free living while Trump continues dismantling the media's painful narratives. Now, it was a beautiful moment. It happened in the Oval Office. I was listening to it live as it happened. It was stunning to listen to. This is when Trump welcomed Bukele to the Oval Office. Listen.
Let's not start. Do you have any questions, please?
President Trump.
Go, let's not start with CNN because they're just so
Mr. President.
wrong. Do you have any questions, please?
Mr. Trump? Yeah. They're just so wrong. President Trump to Kaitlan Collins. This is what he said. Listen.
Why don't you...
Well, Mr. President, you said that if the Supreme Court said someone needed to be returned, that you would abide by that. You said that on Air Force One just a few days ago, and they said that it must be facilitated.
Why don't you just say, isn't it wonderful that we're keeping criminals out of our country? Why can't you just say that? Why do you go over and over? And that's why nobody watches you anymore. You know, you have no credibility. Please go ahead.
President Trump.
Oh, you have no credibility. Here's another one. Stephen Miller tears into fake news CNN for a slanted question about deporting an MS-13 Salvadorian gang member.
I don't know what's happening. Wait a minute. Can you just also respond to that question? Because, you know, it's asked by CNN, and they always ask it with a slant because they're totally slanted because they don't know what's happening. That's why nobody's watching them. But would you answer that question also, please?
Yes, gladly. So, as Pam mentioned, there's an illegal alien from El Salvador. So, with respect to you, he's a citizen of El Salvador. So it's very arrogant even for American media to suggest that we would even tell El Salvador how to handle their own citizens as a starting point. As 2 immigration courts found that he was a member of MS-13. When President Trump declared MS-13 to be a foreign terrorist organization, that meant that he was no longer eligible under federal law, which I'm sure you know, you're very familiar with the INA, that he was no longer eligible for any form of immigration relief in the United States. So we had a deportation order that was valid, which meant that under our law, he's not even allowed to be present in the United States and had to be returned because of the foreign terrorist designation. This issue was then, by a district court judge, completely inverted, and a district court judge tried to tell the administration that they had to kidnap a citizen of El Salvador and fly him back here. That issue was raised to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said the district court order was unlawful, and its main components were reversed 9-0 unanimously, stating clearly that neither Secretary of State nor the President could be compelled by anybody to forcibly retrieve a citizen of El Salvador from El Salvador, who again is a member of MS-13, which, as I'm sure you understand, rapes little girls, murders women, murders children, is engaged in the most barbaric activities in the world, and I can promise you, if he was your neighbor, you would move right away.
So you don't plan to ask for anyone to get him back?
And what was the ruling in the Supreme Court, Steve? Was it 9-0?
Yes, it was a 9-0
in our favor.
In our favor, against the district court ruling, saying that no district court has the power to compel the foreign policy function of the United States. As Pam said, the ruling solely stated that if this individual, at El Salvador's sole discretion, was sent back to our country, that we could deport him a second time.
Well,
no version of this legally ends up with him ever living here because he is a citizen of El Salvador. That is the president of El Salvador. Your questions about it, per the court, can only be directed to him.
Smoked. Totally smoked. Oh, my goodness. Now, Dana Bash was forced to respond to Trump's Oval Office CNN comments with her statement, and it was just, she was all over the map. Oh, you could, this is solid gold. Watch this.
Trump say in the Oval.
You know, like CNN over here doesn't want to put them out because they don't like putting out good numbers. They only like putting out because I think they hate our country, actually.
Before I get to you, I just want to say, for the record, since we heard President Trump say in the Oval Office that CNN hates our country, CNN does not hate our country. That should go without saying. I've been here for 32 years, and I see a rhetorical device in him trying to say such a thing.
You know, like CNN over here doesn't want to put them out because they don't like.
Now I've got another. There's another angle of that. It's a little bit longer. It's really good. I'm just trying to find it for you right now. Okay, I think I've got it here. Let's see. Check this out. Here it is.
We have heard a lot of bits of information, a lot of news nuggets that we want to definitely focus on. A lot of.
I mean, she's just. We don't hate America. She's stumbling over her own words. I'll never forget when she was assigned to the Ron Paul campaign trail. That was a interesting moment in history, too.
News nuggets that we want to definitely focus on. A lot of some misinformation as well. But we want to digest all of this right now with our terrific panel here and our reporters. Jeff Zeleny, I want to start with you. You are at the White House. Before I get to you, I just want to say, for the record, since we heard President Trump say in the Oval Office that CNN hates our country, CNN does not hate our country. That should go without saying. I've been here for 32 years, and I see a rhetorical device in him trying to say such a thing. That said, I want to focus on the news that we heard. We have heard.
The news is that CNN hates our country. Here's President Trump and his team demolishing the fake news CNN. And here's another great angle. Here's Marco Rubio.
These are sick people. Marco, do you have something to say?
Yeah, I mean, Stephen outlined it. I don't understand what the confusion is. This individual is a citizen of El Salvador. He was illegally in the United States and was returned to his country. That's where you deport people, back to their country of origin. Except for Venezuela, that wasn't refusing to take people back, or places like that. I can tell you this, Mr. President. No, the foreign policy of the United States is conducted by the President of the United States, not by a court. And no court in the United States has a right to conduct the foreign policy of the United States. It's that simple.
The court specifically said he couldn't be sent back to El Salvador, though.
Point. The Supreme Court said exactly what Marco said, that no court has the authority to compel the foreign policy function of the United States. We won a case 9-0, and people like CNN are portraying it as a loss, as usual, because they want foreign terrorists in the country who kidnap women and children.
Stephen Miller's standing right next to Kaitlan Collins, and he's pointing at her, just drilling CNN. I'm going to scroll it back just a hair because I love just watching Stephen Miller go to town. And he's right next to her.
Authority to compel the foreign policy function of the United States. We won a case 9-0, and people like CNN are portraying it as a loss, as usual, because they want foreign terrorists in the country who kidnap women and children. But President Trump, his policy is foreign terrorists that are here illegally get expelled from the country, which, by the way, is a 90-10 issue.
Well, Mr. President, you said that if the Supreme Court said someone needed to be returned, that you would abide by that. You said that on Air Force One just a few days ago. And
How long do we have to answer this question from you? Why don't you just say, isn't it wonderful that we're keeping criminals out of our country? Why can't you just say that?
Well, it's illegal.
Why do you go over and over? And that's why nobody watches you anymore. You have no credibility. Sick piece of.
Oh, man, dude. Oh, this is good stuff. Now, I believe this is a clip from just outside of the Oval Office after the events occurred. Trump ended the CNN reporter's career and credibility today. That's what happens when you defend illegal criminals over U.S. citizens. So, yes, this is clearly them all departing the Oval Office. Let's check this out.
We didn't do it close to 9.
How do you guys feel like your briefing went?
We didn't do a briefing.
Or how do you guys feel like your questions went?
Typical Monday, you know?
And is it normal for Trump to attack you like that? No? How's that usually go?
Close to 9.
No comment from Kaitlan Collins there. He's asking her directly, and she just ignores.
Like that? No? How's that usually go?
Close to.
Oh, man, I could watch that all day long. But who could forget the person who preceded Kaitlan Collins, but the great Jim Acosta, right? The originator of fake news himself. Now, I can certainly say that Kaitlan Collins isn't as toxic as Jim Acosta was. But, of course, Jim Acosta no longer works for CNN because he was that toxic. Let's do a throwback to that wonderful moment in the White House when Donald Trump just tore Jim Acosta a new one.
That way. Go ahead.
On the Russia investigation, are you concerned that you may have?
I'm not concerned about anything with the Russian investigation because it's a hoax. That's enough. Put down the mic.
Mr. President, are you worried about indictments coming down in this investigation? Mr. President.
I'll tell you what, CNN should be ashamed of itself having you working for them. You are a rude, terrible person. You shouldn't be working for CNN. Go ahead.
I think that's unfair.
You're a very rude person. The way you treat Sarah Huckabee is horrible. And the way you treat other people are horrible. You shouldn't treat people that way. Go ahead. Go ahead, Peter. Go ahead.
In Jim's defense, I've traveled with him and watched him. He's a diligent reporter who busts his butt.
Well, I'm not
like
a big
the rest
fan of yours either. So
I understand.
To be honest.
So let me.
I'm not a fan of yours either.
Since I've traveled with him and watched him, he's a diligent reporter who busts his butt.
Well, I'm not
like
a big fan of yours either. So
I understand.
To be honest.
So let me ask you a question, if I can. You repeatedly said
you aren't the best,
Mr. President. You repeatedly over the course of the.
Just sit down, please. Well, when you report fake news, when you report fake news, which CNN does a lot, you are the enemy of the people. Go ahead,
Mr.
Boom. Oh, man, I will never forget that exchange. One of the most famous exchanges with President Trump and the media ever captured on camera. So what is Jim Acosta doing now? Well, apparently he's got a podcast, and I couldn't imagine how many people who's actually watching him. This was published just 24 hours ago. Western Lensman, Elizabeth Warren blasts Trump on Jim Acosta's podcast. Okay, fine. We'll entertain this for just a minute, as long as we possibly can, I guess. Well, play. It won't play. That's strange. Try this again. Well, it doesn't want to play. But you get the point. He's going back to his old Rolodex of Trump haters and trying to drum up some views for his dying podcast. Good luck, Jim. Good luck. So, Dana Bash, you saw, going into an on-air panic, solemnly declaring, for the record, CNN does not hate our country. Since when does a news organization, have to tell viewers it doesn't hate America? Meanwhile, Elizabeth Warren, going on Jim Acosta's podcast, that unless the Trump DOJ investigates Trump, we're just servants of King Donald Trump. Yes, Jim Acosta does not work for CNN anymore after years of pushing lies. As Trump once said, CNN should be ashamed to employ you. And I'm glad they listened. Now, this isn't just a feud with CNN. This is the final collapse of the fake news empire. So here's what I'm going to ask you for the comment section. Is this the beginning of the end of the corrupt corporate media? Or will they double down on their anti-American propaganda? And show everyone where you stand with the real news by picking up a shirt or a hat at the Next News merch shop. Link down below, shop.nextnewsnetwork.com.